A few years ago, I had a terrifying experience that still haunts me today. I was living in a busy city at the time, and I had just finished a late shift at work. It was around 10 p.m., and I was walking home through the quieter side streets of my neighborhood. I'm someone who's always been somewhat cautious, so I was alert, keeping an eye out for any unusual activity. As I walked down the street, I noticed a guy about 20 feet behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. He seemed like just another person walking the same route. But something about his movements caught my attention. He wasn't walking in a normal manner. He was clearly trying to keep his distance, but his pace matched mine, no matter how fast or slow I went. After a few blocks, I decided to take a detour. I turned onto a side street that was a little less populated, hoping he wouldn't follow. I checked over my shoulder, and sure enough, he was still there. It's hard to describe, but I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My instincts told me something wasn't right. I crossed the street hoping that would throw him off, but he crossed too without hesitation. I thought, okay, this is weird now. I had to make a decision. I wasn't that far from home, but something about this guy's persistence made me uncomfortable. I decided to stop at a nearby 24/7 convenience store to try to lose him. The store was empty, except for the cashier, who barely looked up from their phone. I quickly grabbed a drink and stood by the door, hoping to see if the guy would pass by. He didn't. He stopped right outside the store. At this point, I could see his face clearly through the glass. He was staring directly at me. I panicked and ran back into the aisles, trying to calm down. I could hear his footsteps growing louder as he approached the door. I couldn't stay here any longer. I tried to pay, but I was so rattled I couldn't focus on anything. The cashier just stared at me, probably wondering why I looked so frantic. I threw the drink on the counter, paid quickly, and bolted out the door. I ran down another street, not wanting to look back, but knowing I had to. I didn't see him for a while, and my heart slowly started to calm down. But as I turned the corner to my street, I saw him again, standing at the far end of the block. It was like he had been waiting there the whole time. I wasn't sure what to do next. I considered calling the police, but he hadn't really done anything illegal, just followed me for a while. I didn't want to overreact, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. He was still standing there watching me, and now he was closer. I took a deep breath, checked both ways, and made a beeline for my apartment building, not daring to look back until I was inside. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and stayed there, staring out the window for what felt like hours. I didn't see him again after that night, but the whole experience left me unsettled for weeks. I never felt comfortable walking home alone late at night after that, even though I've lived in the city my entire life. I still wonder if I was just being paranoid, but there was something off about the way he followed me. It felt intentional, and it left me with a gut feeling I couldn't shake. If you're reading this, the guy who followed me for hours that night, let's not meet again. This is a long story, so stick with me. I am a bartender. I have some crazy stories where I have been genuinely scared for my life, but this has got to be the worst. I'm working a double at the restaurant. Around 11 a.m., a delivery man comes in with a package that I had to sign for. He comes, I sign for the package, and tell him to have a good day with a smile. I continue my shift per usual. This was a Friday, and later on we got busy. The restaurant and parking lot full. I see a lot of different people daily, plus seeing someone, for the second time ever, out of their uniform. You may not recognize them. FedEx driver comes and sits at the bar. I don't, obviously, remember him from the 25-second interaction we had that morning. I start talking to him as I do all my customers. I get him a drink, appetizer, another drink, entree, etc. Our conversation started. Him. How long have you worked here? Me. A few years. I've worked my way up. Him. How do you like it here? Just regular conversation with a bar guest. It slowly became not so regular. He asked me if I had a boyfriend. I said yes. He complimented me, saying how beautiful I was every few minutes. Can I have your number? No, I don't think my boyfriend would appreciate that. Okay, what's your last name? We could just be Facebook friends? All annoying but normal interactions I have had with men in this industry. He started to become really pushy over time, pressing for my phone number or social media. I continued to politely decline and laugh it off. He then tells me, I actually came this morning to drop off a package with FedEx. You signed for it? I came back just for you. I smile and continue with my stupid customer service. Oh yeah, I remember you. Smile and laugh it off. I even stepped in the back to vent to my manager at this point about how he was being extra pushy and uncomfortable. Flash forward about an hour, he pays his tab and leaves. I'm just glad he's gone at this point. We'll say as a guess, it's about 7 p.m. when he leaves. We are still busy and we close at 10. We finish dinner service, customers slowly start to leave, and the restaurant is finally empty. I've been cleaning for a while and am finally finishing up. It's about 10:30 at this point. I'm cleaning the bar. I look up. The whole front of the restaurant that I'm facing consists of large windows that face the parking lot, and I see one car in the parking lot. I notice that the delivery driver, guest from earlier, is standing outside of the car, walking around it and seeming like he is cleaning the back seat out. Doors open, and he is leaning in and out with a bag. As soon as I realized it was him, who had left almost 4 hours ago, my heart sank. Why was he still here? Why was he cleaning the back seat out? I freak. My manager and I are the only people left in the restaurant at this point. It's almost 11. I run to her and tell her everything, about how he came back just for me, and about how he had seemingly left 4 hours ago. And I made her come from the back of the restaurant to behind the bar, up front so she could see him in the parking lot. I don't know, waiting for me? She says she's going to call the police. At this point, my boyfriend and I had an apartment literally 5 minutes away from the restaurant. I told her not to worry about it. I'll just call my boyfriend to come get me. I did just that, but my BF could immediately tell something was wrong, and when I'm scared, anxious, I ramble. So I gave him a quick debriefing of what was going on. He said he would be there soon, and I hung up. My manager made me sit in the office until he got there, so I didn't see this go down. All I remember is my boyfriend coming into the restaurant to get me, walking me to the car through the back door, and me getting home. My boyfriend, who is very confrontational and protective, later tells me that he pulled in the parking lot to see FedEx drivers sitting in the driver's seat of his car. My boyfriend walked up to his car and knocked on the window for him to roll it down. He does, and my boyfriend tells him something along the lines of, "You need to get out of here." This is where the scariest thing happens. The dude responded to him in a different language, mumbling and acting like he didn't speak English. My boyfriend said something like, "I know you speak English. You've been talking to my girlfriend all night, and you need to get out of here." Dude continued to ramble in a different language until my boyfriend raised his voice and basically said, "You have 15 seconds before I pull you out of this car and you never leave this parking lot," for the guy to finally put the car in drive and speed off. I was on edge for weeks after this interaction and even considered switching jobs. Why was he still in the parking lot that long after close and hours after cashing out his tab? And why was he cleaning his back seat? To the creepy bar guest delivery driver, let's never meet again. I only remember bits and pieces, but my mom and husband filled me in. This happened in 2018. My parents, my husband, and I were driving to Indianapolis to see some family. I'd found out about my husband's 4-month emotional affair with his unstable ex, and I was really struggling, and I felt extremely alone. His ex had tried to break us up, and I was afraid she'd succeed because of how manipulative she is. I lied and told my husband I was having a cigarette, while actually I went to the bar. I ordered 2 double vodkas with a splash of orange juice. I was really connecting to the bartender when she said they were closing. She gave me another bar that was close by. I was already feeling relaxed when I got to TGI Fridays. I ordered 2 more double vodka, and I was wasted, so I went outside to have a cigarette to wake me up. I was leaning against a light pole in the parking lot. Time passed, and I suddenly realized I was being walked and pushed into a car. Suddenly, I heard my mom yelling to stop that I was her daughter. This creepy man was challenging her on whether we were related. It was insane, and I don't remember much, but I do remember his trying to steal me. This guy would not give up and was basically holding me hostage. That's when my mom said she'd call the police. He drove away so fast his passenger driver was open. My mother and husband told me later that they tracked my phone and came to where it said I was. I had my phone in my purse, so IDK if the guy got rid of it or what, but it's scary. They found my phone discarded. Then my mom called 911 because I was extremely drunk and am not making sense. I woke up in the hospital. I was tied down because apparently for my safety. When I actually woke up, I had huge bruises on my arm from the guy trying to get me in his car, and also an incredibly huge bruise on my chest. I didn't know what happened, but felt guilty and never really understood what happened. Update, my husband and I worked it out and we're good now. You hear stories about people unknowingly squatting in other people's homes, but never think it would actually happen to you. It happened to me. About 10 years I, 31F, was living alone in a two-family house on the second floor with my then toddler. For the story to make sense, I need to try and explain the layout and the backstory. My brother's close friend at the time lived on the first floor and is the one who referred me to the landlord. We had private front entrances but a shared back entrance with a staircase that ran from the basement all the way to the second floor. I would frequently leave my back door unlocked because I had a habit of locking my keys in the house, and my downstairs neighbor could let me in the back door. The downstairs neighbor had a friend who was kind of down and out. He had a history of substance abuse but was supposedly clean at the time. He was a relatively nice guy, and my neighbor had been letting him stay on his couch for a while. The neighbor had a 4-year-old daughter, and having someone constantly sleeping on the couch without any plans of finding a permanent living situation was becoming disruptive to their everyday lives. Neighbor tells him he needs to go. It was summertime, so the friend decides he's going to sleep on the couch on our covered porch. We tell him that's not acceptable, and when we asked him to leave, we meant the property in general. It had also become abundantly clear that he was using again, and his behavior had become somewhat erratic. He was also making a lot of unsolicited advances on me, which had become increasingly uncomfortable. He wasn't happy, but it wasn't our problem. He stopped coming around and we no longer saw him around town. Fast forward a month or two, and I noticed things going missing. Jewelry, small amounts of money left around the house, lighters, inconsequential items I had written off as lost. This house was old with paper-thin walls. The back door in question was right next to the bathroom along one side of the shower. It also made a very distinct noise when open. One day my car was at the mechanic, so it probably appeared that I wasn't home. When I'm showering and I swear I hear the back door open. I freeze, practically stop breathing, but after a few minutes when nobody murdered me, American Psycho style, I wrote it off again. I'm a notorious wimp and had a history since childhood of thinking every strange noise was a potential murderer. This was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact length of time, possibly a few weeks. The basement was really big, and the landlord also stored stuff down there. It was very packed with some very dark corners. We rarely went down there. The landlord comes by one day and goes down to the basement. He hears a strange noise, grabs a baseball bat, and finds this man in our basement. The man pushed the landlord down, runs out of the house and down the street. We call the police, who find him hiding in a trash can around the corner. Can't make this stuff up. Upon further investigation, we find the basement window had been ever so slightly propped open. In a back corner behind some boxes was a nest of blankets filled with our missing items, plus some drug paraphernalia. He had also left his flip phone behind in the chaos, where we found a lot of pictures of me sleeping. This man had been high on crack, living in our basement and regularly entering my apartment, both when I wasn't home and when I was sleeping for months. While he seemed like a nice guy, he was regularly high on hard drugs, and that changes people. I still get chills knowing he could have done anything to me and my child, and I would have never seen it coming. The worst part is that the charges somehow got dropped, and they never even consulted us, and they never gave us an option as the victims. This was not even close to his first criminal offense. To the drugged-out maniac living in the basement, let's not meet again. Met Leo, 18 male at the time, during my 17 female at the time, junior year of high school. Leo was an immigrant from Guatemala and was new to my school. We had many classes together, but we both enjoyed choir a lot. One day we were coming back from a choir trip. I mustered up the courage to sit with him on the bus and begin a conversation. He charmed me immediately. We talked for 3 hours and enjoyed the time so much. He gave me a cute origami boat with his number and Snapchat on it, and I had fallen hard. We spent the next 10 days messaging and snapping every single day. We sat next to each other in every class and started eating lunch in the library together. I began to notice a few red flags that I chose to ignore because I thought I was being crazy. The first was that any time I invited him to an activity or hangout outside of school, he would blatantly refuse. There was never any excuse or reason. The answer was simply, nope. I invited him to several things, even some with my family, and he would never even consider it. The next red flags started when he would ask me questions, but never allow me to answer them. He'd ask a question, and right as I'd begin to respond, he would interrupt it with a much more personal question. Example, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm going to... How many boyfriends have you had? It was really strange. On day 10, I was walking my dog, and I got a strange message from him. I had a dream and I want to tell you about it. At first I was thrilled and was curious, but then when he started sending a bunch of messages through, I got really sick. The dreams he had were a bunch of very descriptive sexual fantasies about me. All of them were sickening and objectified my body in ways that no one would be comfortable. He started telling me the types of nude photos he wanted to take of me and the things he wanted me to be doing to myself and them. It wasn't sexy, it was scary. Then he told me how he wanted to meet up in secret several times a week, that nobody would know. That's when I responded, no, please never talk to me again. I blocked him on everything. I called my friend who had him on Snapchat as well, and she frantically told me that he was adding photos to his story. All of them were pornographic photos of girls that looked a lot like me. They had the same body shape, hair color, skin tone, etc. He did this for 2 months until he graduated and announced to the class that he would be moving to California. Throughout those 2 months, he would constantly try to talk to me at school the way he first did when we were harmlessly flirting, but I shut it down and told him to go away. I thought I was in the clear, but that was not the case. All summer I would get messages from random numbers. You look pretty in that pink shirt. What did you order? I ordered the burger. It's a nice day for the fair, right? Anytime I went out with friends, he was there. I would never see him, but he would message me something so that I would know he was there. All of the numbers were burner phones. At the same time, he was posting photos on his Instagram of being in California, his new life there, and how he was getting a new job, house, etc. None of the pictures had his face in them, though. I deleted all of my socials. I changed my number. Eventually, after I graduated, my family moved to a new town, and I followed. He clearly no longer knew where I was, but I would still get messages, emails, fake profiles of him trying to stalk my friends and family. It continued for 3 more years until one day he just stopped. I've never heard from him again. Eventually, I got my socials back but made everything private. I'm now married and killing it at my job, but I will never forget this awful experience. Every few years, it resurfaces and plays through my mind on repeat for months. So Leo, let's not meet. For context, when this happened, I was 17, I'm now 18, and this was right before I turned 18. I was on a lot of apps to help me make friends as I'm autistic and struggle making friends. I'm femme and non-binary and also asexual. So because the nature of these apps, I stated that I was asexual on my bio. I also stated other things like my interests. Then I met this one guy who lived like an hour away, and I was looking for a friend to smoke with, and he said he would. I know, I was very naive. Nonetheless, we planned a time and I waited outside for him. He brought me a breeze and we took turns hitting his cart. We had very meaningful, deep conversations. We immediately just clicked, which I thought was amazing. Well, until a bit later when I was very high, because I'm impulsive and don't know my limits well. It was getting very cold. I told him I should get back inside. He agreed and started to walk me towards my window. I was stumbling, unable to see straight. Once in my driveway, he asked for a hug before he left, and me, thinking it was kind of cute, did give him a hug. Then next thing I know, he was behind me. He had a knife to my neck. At first I tried to fight back, but realized that was getting me nowhere. Fighting back even severely hurt me. In the heat of the moment, I thought I was going to become just another true crime murder story, so I started listening to him. I was hoping he'd spare my life, but at the same time was trying to leave as much evidence as possible, just in case listening didn't get me out of it. And it didn't. Then I saw scars on his thighs. I managed to appeal to some sort of humanity he had in him. My exact words were, "I saw your scars, you're just like me. You're hurting, but this isn't gonna stop the hurt, only temporarily soothe it." I don't know how I was able to think so logically in such a panicked state, but it ended up being what saved me. He ended up letting me go, only if I agreed to meet him again, so I agreed, then went inside and tended to my cut thumb. Then I blocked him on everything and kept his chats in my phone just in case I was ever brave enough to go to the police. Obviously didn't meet up with him again and never will. What scares me most is how much we had in common with our mentality and personality. It's scary. I know predators like this say stuff they don't mean, but our deep convos felt real. Anyway, please listen to my advice and don't ever meet someone from online.